Stevens was born in 1879 in the city of Reading, Pennsylvania. His father supplied him with a library of books at home and encouraged reading, which fueled his early education. Upon entering public school at the age of 12, Stevens showed early interest to writing and wrote for his school's newspaper. After graduating from his hometown of Reading, Pennsylvania, he decided to continue studying literature at Harvard. By his second year at Harvard, he was back to writing for a school newspaper, this time the Harvard Advocate. He joined a rival publication, the Harvard Monthly, and later became the president of the board. At this point, Stevens had earned every honor in writing available at Harvard. His time at Harvard was cut short in 1900 when his family became tight on money and he had to unenroll from the university. After Harvard, Stevens continued to work as a journalist. He started to write for the New York Evening Post. He used this job as a way to explore New York City and all that it had to offer. Stevens grew tired of being a journalist and wrote to his father about thoughts of getting a job in literature. His father encouraged him to get into the law field instead. He enrolled in the New York School of Law and after graduation went to work for multiple law firms. In 1909, he married his wife, Elsie Kachel. The years following both of his parents died, and he stopped writing poetry. Instead, he became involved in New York's art scene. He became greatly interested in the art galleries and exhibits throughout New York City. Stevens had great success in the assurance field of law. He began writing poetry, with two being published in 1914. After he began writing poetry again, he changed jobs and was hired as vice president of the Equitable Surety Company. After, he left that position to become vice president of the Hartford Accident and Indemnity Company, where he remained employed for the rest of his life. While working for the Hartford Company, Stevens began to write the majority of his poems. His first book of poems, titled Harmonium, was published in 1923. A year later, he published a reprised version of the book, with the weaker poems removed and 14 new ones added. Stevens continued to write poems as he went to and from work, with his normal days spent behind an office desk. Though he is now considered a great American poet, he was widely unknown until the publication of his collected poems in 1954, just a year before his death in 1955. The poem I chose to talk about was his poem, Anecdote of a Jar. In the poem, a jar is placed upon a hill. Surrounding nature conforms to the jar and rises up to the level of the hill that the jar was placed on. The nature is described as no longer wild because it was forced to conform to the jar. The jar takes dominion everywhere and is described as gray and bare. This jar represents mankind's takeover of natural landscapes to build cities and industry.